An ancient shipwreck whispered through sonar like a voice calling back. Around it, stars stretched into endless patterns, nebulae shimmered in colors humans had no names for, and the emptiness seemed almost alive. Inside the vessel, the crew moved with quiet purpose, their minds occupied with charts, instruments, and constant monitoring. They were explorers, scientists, and engineers, trained to notice what others overlooked, and now they were deep in an uncharted sector far beyond human-mapped space. Captain Alara Voss leaned against the observation window of the bridge, her eyes tracing the stars. The vastness of the universe had always held her fascination, not just because of the science, but because of the stories it could tell. Space was old, older than any civilization in the galaxy, and humans in their short existence were only beginning to touch its secrets. She loved these missions, the quiet anticipation, the sense of walking alongside history waiting to be found. Dr. Aaron Kepler, the ship's chief scientist, sat at the sonar console. His fingers moved across the controls, adjusting frequencies, filtering background noise, and scanning for any anomaly that might suggest something unusual. Most of the sector had already been passed over by other species, their sensors trained to detect life, energy emissions, or threats. But humans had a reputation for noticing subtle details others missed. Aaron smiled faintly, a little proud of his people's peculiar attention to patterns. "Anything?" Captain Voss asked, her voice calm but curious. Aaron's fingers paused over the controls. "Wait," he said, leaning closer. "There's something here, I'm not sure what it is yet. The sonar is picking up a pattern, but it's unlike any signature I've seen before." The bridge quieted. Crew members glanced up from their stations, curiosity sparking across their faces. Humans were naturally drawn to the strange, the mysterious. It was almost instinctive. They didn't just react to danger or opportunity. They studied, they questioned, they imagined. "What kind of pattern?" Voss asked. Aaron tapped the console again. A faint, rhythmic pulse echoed through the speakers. At first, it sounded like static, but the more they listened, the more it seemed deliberate, like a soft rhythm hidden within the noise. "Listen," Aaron said. "It isn't random, there's structure. It rises and falls almost like someone or something is trying to communicate." Voss leaned closer. The pulse was subtle, almost hypnotic, and for a moment she felt as if it were calling to her. "A signal from where?" "Unknown," Aaron replied. "It's old, very old, maybe older than anything in the records." Other species' scans would have passed this by, thinking it was just space noise. But humans, we notice the quiet things. The crew exchanged glances, a mixture of excitement and caution. They had been trained for exploration, but few had actually encountered something this mysterious. Lieutenant Mara Dalen, the communications officer, adjusted her console. "If it is a signal, it's not like anything I've ever heard. No frequency matches, no encryption patterns." "It's almost organic," Voss nodded. "Then we follow it slowly, carefully, keep it safe, but find out what it is." The Aurora adjusted its course, moving toward the source of the pulsing sound. Outside, the stars shifted, and the darkness of space seemed to grow deeper, more infinite. Inside, the crew felt a thrill they could hardly explain. Humans thrived on curiosity, on the challenge of the unknown. While other species might have ignored this anomaly as debris or interference, humans were drawn to it. It called to their minds in a way that promised discovery. Hours passed. The sonar pulses grew clearer, more rhythmic, more intentional. Crew members took turns analyzing the patterns. Dr. Kepler noticed repetitions, small sequences that repeated every few minutes. "It's a language," he whispered, almost to himself. "I don't know whose, but it's structured. Someone left this behind." Voss frowned thoughtfully. "Left behind? You think it's an ancient vessel?" "Possibly," Kepler said. "Or some form of automated message, but it's too precise to be random, and the way it responds to our scanning, it's almost as if it's aware we're here." Awareness. The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Humans had long speculated about intelligent life beyond their star system, but this was different. Other civilizations might have sent signals, but this was old, ancient. It carried the weight of time, yet it reacted subtly to human attention. Mara tilted her head at her console. "Captain, it's strange. The sonar echoes are almost musical. If I adjust the frequency, I can hear patterns within the pulses, like a rhythm designed to be recognized." Voss leaned forward. "Could it be a warning?" Aaron shook his head. "I don't think so. Warnings are sharp, abrupt, meant to startle. This is inviting. It's like a whisper calling us to come closer." The bridge fell silent. Even in space, in the emptiness, they felt it, a faint pull, like a thread tugging at the mind. Humans had always been storytellers, seekers, dreamers. It was in their nature to answer a call like this. Over the next day, the Aurora followed the signal. The sonar pulses guided them through asteroid belts, past gas clouds that shimmered with strange particles, and toward an area that had no recorded charts. Sensors detected nothing conventional, only faint energy readings that made no sense by known physics. Aaron and his team worked tirelessly trying to decode the patterns. At first, the pulses seemed simple, but soon they revealed subtle shifts in pitch and duration, almost like a conversation. Doctor. Kepler realized that the sonar signal changed slightly every time the humans adjusted their instruments. "It's responding," he said excitedly. "It's listening to us." Voss felt a shiver of awe. Humans were not the first to explore space, but their ability to recognize patterns, to think beyond immediate danger, allowed them to perceive what others missed. This wasn't just a ship. It was a test, a challenge, an invitation from a time long gone. The crew began to speculate about what could have left it behind. Was it an alien species, a human predecessor lost in time, or something entirely unknown? No one had answers, but everyone shared the same thrill, the kind that came from standing on the edge of history, knowing that the universe held secrets just waiting for humans to notice. As the Aurora approached the source of the signal, the pulses intensified. They were no longer faint. They resonated through the hull, through the consoles, through the minds of the crew. Myra adjusted the audio filters to their highest sensitivity, and suddenly the sound became almost like a voice, not words but intonations, patterns that felt intentional. "It's speaking," she said softly. "Not with words but with meaning. I can feel it." Voss nodded, staring out at the black expanse. "Humans hear what others do not. That is who we are. We listen, we explore, we answer when the universe calls." Aaron grinned. "Then we're ready. Whatever is out there, it's time to meet it." The Aurora continued its slow, careful approach. Sensors detected faint metallic traces ahead, structures barely distinguishable against the backdrop of stars. The pulses seemed to grow more confident, more insistent, almost as if the ship, or whatever remained, recognized the humans' intent. The crew worked together seamlessly, adjusting navigation, decoding sonar, and interpreting data. Each member understood that discovery was never accidental. It required patience, intelligence, and collaboration, all traits humans had in abundance. The galaxy had long underestimated humans' ability to see patterns, to notice the subtle signals, to act where others hesitated. Night passed aboard the Aurora. Outside, space remained still and infinite, yet inside, a quiet excitement buzzed. Humans were explorers, yes, but they were also listeners. And they had found something in the darkness, something that had waited patiently across the centuries for minds willing to perceive it. Captain Voss finally spoke, her voice steady with determination. "Tomorrow, we'll see what's really out there. For now, we prepare." This is not just a discovery, it's a connection, and humans understand connections better than any other species. The crew nodded. They felt the weight of history, the pull of the unknown, and the thrill of being the first to recognize it. The Aurora drifted onward, toward the ancient whisper in space, a shipwreck that had called across time, and toward a truth waiting to be revealed by the humans who had learned to listen where others never did. The sonar pulses continued through the night, faint yet insistent, like a heartbeat. And somewhere in the emptiness, the Aurora responded. The Aurora moved slowly, almost reverently, through the uncharted expanse of space. Every crew member felt the weight of anticipation pressing quietly against their thoughts. The sonar pulses had grown stronger, more defined, and now seemed almost like a conversation in rhythm and tone. Humans were unique in their ability to notice subtle cues, to perceive patterns others would ignore, and the crew could feel that this moment would test that very uniqueness. Captain Alara Voss walked the length of the bridge, observing her crew with a quiet smile. Scientists hunched over consoles, scanning the incoming data, while engineers adjusted systems to maintain precision in navigation. The patterns of the pulses suggested intelligence, and humans had always been capable of patience and ingenuity when faced with puzzles. Other species might have considered the area a waste of time or a dead zone, but humans were drawn to challenges like moths to a gentle, irresistible light. "Approaching the source," said Lieutenant Myra Dalen, her voice calm yet tinged with awe. The sonar readouts shifted rhythmically, as if recognizing the ship's progress. Each pulse now responded to the crew's adjustments, subtly changing pitch and cadence almost in approval. Myra smiled. It's like it knows we're here, and it waits for us to understand. Aaron Kepler, chief scientist, leaned closer to his console. I've been mapping the variations. They aren't random. Every slight change in frequency is a response to our scanning. It's like a conversation, though we don't yet know the language. This is extraordinary. Nothing like this has been recorded in human history or by any other species as far as I know. The captain nodded. Then we proceed carefully. We observe, we listen, and we learn. That is what humans do best. That is why we are here. As the aurora drifted deeper toward the source of the signals, faint structures began to appear on long-range sensors. At first, they looked like irregular clusters of debris. But as the ship approached, the patterns revealed themselves as deliberate, shapes that were too precise to be accidental. Long, elegant arcs of metal reflected distant starlight, and fragments of what might have been hull plating floated in space, creating delicate geometric patterns. Aaron's eyes widened. This is not just a wreck, it's an architectural statement. Whoever or whatever built this ship had skill and care, even artistry, and the sonar pulses they are coming from inside it. Voss's expression was unreadable, but her mind raced with possibilities. Other species might have destroyed or ignored it, she said quietly. But humans notice what others dismiss. That is our advantage. That is why we are here. Mara adjusted her instruments to filter background noise. The pulsing grew clearer, and patterns that had been almost imperceptible before now resonated through the aurora systems. It was as if the ship itself were alive in some strange way. It didn't threaten them. It beckoned. It invited. And humans, more than any other species, understood invitations from the unknown. The crew spent hours analyzing the sonar and energy readings, cross-referencing them with every known civilization's technology. Nothing matched. The pulses did not conform to any pattern of communication in the human database. Yet there was logic, order, and even what Aaron described as emotion, a sense of curiosity embedded in the rhythm. Humans, he realized, could sense subtle intentions in ways other species could not. Outside, the ship loomed larger. It floated with quiet dignity, enormous and elegant, unlike any spacecraft humans had ever imagined. The hull was partially eroded by time and cosmic radiation, yet traces of deliberate design remained. Long, sweeping lines curved gracefully, and crystalline surfaces reflected starlight like frozen water. The aurora's sensors detected faint energy flows within the structure, almost as if it retained a heartbeat. Voss gestured to the crew. Prepare the interface drones. We will gather data before we board. Observation first, then interaction. Humans are careful when approaching the unknown. The engineers launched a small spherical drone, equipped with scanners, cameras, and light sensors. It moved silently through space, gliding toward the ancient vessel. The sonar pulses reacted immediately, growing sharper, almost conversational. The drone's sensors picked up traces of energy that were unfamiliar, patterns that suggested propulsion systems far beyond current human understanding, and data storage units that emitted faint harmonic vibrations. Dr. Kepler studied the readings in fascination. It's a library. Not just a ship, but a library of knowledge, encoded in ways that are musical. It's designed to communicate with whoever can perceive these patterns, and apparently that is us. Mara leaned forward, adjusting her filters again. The pulses respond to the drone's signals too. It's intelligent. I think it's evaluating us, gauging our understanding. Voss nodded. Then we must show understanding. Humans are patient, observant, and persistent. We can listen where others cannot, and we can answer when others ignore the call. For hours, the drone circled the vessel, recording and transmitting data back to the aurora. The crew noticed details that others would have dismissed. Faint scratches that indicated maintenance, symmetrical patterns suggesting design intentions, and energy flows that pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Each observation strengthened the sense that the ship was not abandoned, but waiting, calling, teaching. As the drone returned to the aurora, the crew began attempts to interpret the sonar pulses as a form of language. They identified sequences that repeated in predictable ways, rising and falling in frequency with subtle variations. It was not a spoken language, nor a written code, but a system of communication based on rhythm, resonance, and light. Humans, with their intuitive minds, began to recognize meaning where algorithms failed. Aaron's hands flew across the console. If I map the pulses to light frequencies, I can create a visual translation. Look, see these patterns. Each cluster corresponds to a set of mathematical sequences. They describe positions, coordinates, and instructions. It's a message, encoded in time and resonance. Myra leaned over his shoulder. It's responding to us, not just broadcasting. It's waiting for recognition, for attention. Other species might have ignored it, but humans notice subtle things. We listen. That is why we are the ones standing here instead of anyone else. Voss smiled, quietly proud of her crew. Then we continue. We do not rush. We observe, we learn, we respond. That is the human way. As the Aurora prepared to approach the vessel more closely, unexpected phenomena appeared. Tiny particles of unknown matter drifted around the ancient ship, reflecting light in delicate, almost ethereal patterns. They moved as if responding to the sonar pulses, creating a dynamic field that shimmered with rhythm and color. Humans observed in wonder. Where others might have seen debris or interference, they recognized a subtle interaction, an intelligent design meant to communicate through beauty as well as information. Aaron tapped his console rapidly. The ship's systems are responding to us in real time. We can adjust our scans and it will adapt. It's almost like it wants us to understand the principles it embodies. Other species might never grasp this, but humans notice. We see the patterns where others see chaos. Voss turned to the crew. We are about to make contact of a kind no other species has achieved. We do not know the extent of what we will find, but we are prepared. Humans are explorers, interpreters, listeners. That is our gift. That is why we are here. For the next cycle, the Aurora maintained its slow approach. Each sonar pulse, each adjustment of sensors, was met with a subtle response from the ancient vessel. The ship seemed alive in its own way, communicating through vibrations, harmonics, and light. Humans recognized the intelligence behind it and slowly began to decode small portions of the message embedded in its structure. Coordinates, diagrams, and patterns of energy revealed themselves like pieces of a cosmic puzzle. Myra studied the harmonic responses closely. The ship is teaching us to see its systems. It's not just giving data, it's demonstrating concepts. Other species would have failed to recognize this. But humans, we have the patience, the intuition, the persistence to learn from subtlety. Aaron nodded. Exactly. This is a gift across time. Someone designed this ship to survive centuries, to call across the stars, and to be understood only by those who could perceive and respond. Humans have that ability. That is why we are here. Outside, the ancient vessel shimmered faintly against the darkness, a testament to forgotten civilizations and timeless intelligence. The Aurora drifted closer, guided by sonar, intuition, and human ingenuity. Every pulse, every response, every subtle change in the ship's behavior reinforced a simple truth. Humans were uniquely capable of noticing what others dismissed, understanding what others ignored, and answering calls that others could not hear. Captain Voss looked at her crew, pride and determination in her eyes. This is only the beginning. What we find here may redefine everything we know about exploration, intelligence, and the human place in the galaxy. We proceed with care, with curiosity, and with courage. That is the human way. As the ship continued its careful approach, the pulses intensified, forming intricate sequences that danced across the Aurora's instruments. Humans watched, listened, and began to understand. The ancient vessel had waited through centuries, through cosmic silence, for beings who could appreciate subtlety, recognize intelligence in the quiet, and respond with patience and insight. The Aurora had found more than a shipwreck. It had found a dialogue across time, a challenge designed to test curiosity, understanding, and perception. Humans, as always, were ready. And somewhere in the void, the ancient vessel pulsed in approval, a quiet acknowledgement of the species that had learned to listen where others had not. The Aurora drifted closer to the ancient vessel, its massive form now filling long-range sensors with detailed readings. From the observation deck, Captain Alara Voss watched in quiet awe. The ship was enormous, yet elegant, its hull curved with a precision that spoke of intelligence and care. Every fragment of its exterior reflected distant starlight like polished glass. Even centuries in the cold silence of space had not erased the beauty of its design. Dr. Aaron Kepler and Lieutenant Mara Dalen worked tirelessly at the consoles, deciphering the pulsing sonar signals that had guided the human crew to this moment. Each pulse, each subtle variation, seemed intentional, as if the ship itself were alive in some strange way, waiting for beings who could notice the quiet messages embedded in its rhythms. "The sonar is aligning perfectly with our interface now," Mara said, her eyes bright with concentration. "The pulses respond to our instruments almost instantly. It's like it recognizes our curiosity." Aaron nodded. "And look at the structure." The energy readings inside the vessel form patterns, almost musical. Whoever built this didn't just make a ship. They created a language of resonance, a system meant to communicate. And it's responding to us. Voss's lips pressed together in a smile. Humans had always been able to perceive patterns where others saw only randomness. Other species might have considered this ancient ship abandoned, irrelevant, or even dangerous. Humans, however, understood subtlety, patience, and observation. That was their strength. "Prepare the external drones," she said finally. "We need detailed scans before we attempt closer interaction. Humans notice what others ignore, and we will need every detail." The engineering team launched a series of small drones. They glided silently through space, their lights casting gentle reflections on the ancient ship's hull. As the drones approached, the sonar pulses reacted immediately. The rhythms shifted, intensified, and spread across the Aurora's instruments like a living conversation. "Captain," Mara said, adjusting her filters, "the pulses aren't just signals, they're instructions. The ship is guiding us on how to approach it, how to interact safely. It's a map and a lesson all in one." Aaron's hands moved quickly across the console, recording every subtle change. "It's brilliant. Other species might have ignored this, thinking it was dead or irrelevant. But humans notice the quiet things. We listen. That is why we are the ones here now." Hours passed as the Aurora maintained its careful approach. The drones provided detailed images of the vessel, revealing intricate surfaces, delicate lines, and crystalline structures that reflected the starlight like frozen fire. Some panels were etched with patterns that resembled mathematical sequences, others displayed harmonic frequencies that pulsed softly. "It's a library," Aaron said, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Not a ship for war or transport, but for knowledge." Whoever built this designed it to survive centuries and to communicate with those who could perceive the patterns. And humans can perceive. Voss nodded. "Then we prepare for the next stage. Observation first, then careful interaction. This is what humans do best." We approach the unknown with patience, intelligence, and respect. As the Aurora moved closer, the ship's sonar pulses grew increasingly complex. Myra traced the variations on her console, her fingers dancing across the controls. "I think it's trying to show us something," she said. "A path inside, a way to navigate without triggering dormant systems. It's teaching us step by step." Aaron leaned over, eyes wide. "And it responds to our adjustments in real time. Every change we make, it adapts." "This is intelligence beyond the usual. It's deliberate and patient, designed for understanding, not force." Voss smiled. "Humans notice, adapt, and understand. That is our strength. Others might see an ancient wreck. We see an invitation." The crew prepared for the most delicate part of their mission, sending an interface drone inside the vessel. It was small, nimble, and fully equipped with scanners, lights, and a miniature AI designed to interact with unfamiliar technology. As the drone approached the entryway, the sonar pulses shifted into complex harmonics, as if acknowledging the human presence. Inside the vessel, the drone revealed a vast interior chamber. It was enormous, filled with crystalline structures that seemed to hum with faint energy. Patterns of light danced across the walls in response to the drone's signals, forming shapes and sequences that suggested both logic and artistry. Aaron's breath caught. "It's a teaching chamber. The ship is showing us its systems, step by step." Other species might never have understood this. Mara's eyes widened. "It's beautiful and alive in a way, not living but aware. It responds to intent and curiosity. That is why humans are here. We can perceive intention." The Aurora hovered near the entrance as the crew watched the live feed from the drone. The ancient vessel's interior revealed more surprises. Compartments that stored data in crystal matrices, mechanisms that moved with a silent grace, and panels etched with sequences that conveyed information through light, sound, and harmonic resonance. Each discovery deepened the crew's sense of awe and responsibility. "This is more than exploration," Aaron said softly. "It's a conversation across time. Whoever designed this wanted to share knowledge with those who could notice, understand, and respond. And we are the ones they waited for." Voss's gaze swept over her crew. "Then we continue, carefully, patiently, with curiosity and respect. Humans notice what others ignore. That is why we are capable of understanding the messages hidden here." The crew began decoding the harmonic sequences. Slowly, patterns emerged, instructions, coordinates, and principles of energy systems that humans had never encountered. Each sequence built upon the last, forming a coherent structure that suggested not just knowledge but philosophy, an understanding of technology, intelligence, and the universe. Mara adjusted her filters again. "The ship is teaching us step by step. It's showing how its systems work, how energy flows, how information is stored. Other species might never have realized the value of subtlety. Humans understand subtlety. That is why we are here." Aaron's fingers flew across the console. "If we map these sequences to our instruments, we can predict the ship's internal structure. The pulses are a language but also a guide. This is extraordinary. Humans perceive patterns where others do not, connect the dots others ignore, and respond where others hesitate." Voss nodded. "Then we prepare for full interaction. The drone has mapped a path inside. Soon we will understand the ship as it was meant to be understood, carefully, intelligently, as humans do." As the hours passed, the crew continued to explore, decode, and respond. The ancient ship systems responded with increasing clarity, forming complex sequences of light and sound that conveyed knowledge without words. The humans felt the weight of history pressing around them, yet also the thrill of discovery. They were not just observing, they were participants in a dialogue across centuries. The vessel's energy systems pulsed with quiet intensity. Crystalline storage units emitted harmonic tones that formed intricate patterns, almost musical, conveying principles of physics, energy, and navigation. Aaron realized that the ship's knowledge went beyond technology. It was a record of understanding, designed for minds capable of perception, patience, and creativity. "This is a gift," Aaron whispered. "A bridge across time, meant for beings who notice, who think, who understand." Humans are those beings." Mara leaned closer to her console. "The sequences form a clear path through the ship. Each step is logical, deliberate, designed for those who perceive patterns. Other species might have failed at this point. Humans succeed because we notice, we think, we listen." Voss's eyes reflected the soft glow of the instruments. "That is the human way. We explore, observe, and understand. That is why we are capable of unlocking this ancient wisdom." Finally, the drone reached a central chamber. It was vast, filled with crystalline interfaces, harmonic emitters, and panels etched with sequences of light. The ship's voice pulsed in recognition, a rhythmic harmony that seemed to celebrate the human's persistence and perception. Aaron studied the patterns carefully. "This is more than data. It's a philosophy of intelligence, a guide to systems that harmonize with life and energy. Other species might never have grasped it. Humans notice the quiet, subtle things. That is why we are here." Mara smiled. "We are connecting with a mind from the past, one that designed systems to endure, to communicate, to teach, and humans are the ones listening. That is extraordinary." Voss turned to the crew. "We have learned much, but this is only the beginning. The ship has shared its systems, its principles, and its intelligence. Soon we will fully understand it, and in doing so we demonstrate the unique capability of humans to notice, to learn, and to connect across time." The drone transmitted every detail back to the Aurora. Each reading, each harmonic pulse, each sequence of light and sound was recorded, analyzed, and interpreted. Humans were learning not just technology, but understanding. The vessel had survived centuries to meet minds capable of perception. Humans were those minds. As the crew worked, the ship responded in real time, shifting its harmonic patterns, adjusting light sequences, and guiding the drone through its interior. It was a collaboration across time, a dialogue in which humans were active participants. Other species might have failed, misread, or ignored the signals. Humans noticed, responded, and learned. That was the essence of their nature. By the end of the cycle, the crew had mapped the central chamber, understood the basics of the ship's energy systems, and begun to interpret the complex sequences of harmonic communication. They were not merely observers, they were students of an ancient mind, participants in a conversation that had waited centuries to be recognized. Captain Voss gazed at the feed, her expression a mixture of awe and determination. We are part of something larger than ourselves. Humans see patterns, understand intention, and respond with thought and care. That is why we are capable of this connection, and that is why the universe continues to call to us, even across centuries. The Aurora hovered near the ancient vessel as the crew continued their careful exploration. Every pulse, every harmonic, every subtle shift in light confirmed a single truth. Humans notice what others ignore, perceive what others overlook, and understand what others cannot. And somewhere in the void, the ancient vessel pulsed in recognition, its long wait finally fulfilled. Humans had arrived, and they were ready to learn. The Aurora remained suspended outside the ancient vessel, its hull reflecting faint light from distant stars. Inside, the crew worked tirelessly, their excitement tempered by careful focus. They had already mapped most of the vessel, understood its basic systems, and begun decoding the complex sequences of harmonic communication. Yet, there was more. The ship still pulsed with patterns that hinted at knowledge deeper than anything humans had encountered. Captain Alara Voss stood on the observation deck, her eyes tracing the elegant curves of the ancient vessel. She could feel the pulse of intelligence, subtle but unmistakable. It was patient, deliberate, almost like it had been waiting centuries for the right beings to arrive. Humans, with their unique combination of curiosity, intuition, and persistence, were finally here. "Captain," Mara Dalen said, adjusting the filters on her console, "the ship's harmonic sequences are aligning with our neural interface. If we proceed carefully, we may be able to access the deeper layers of its systems. It's like it wants us to learn from it directly, not just through translation." Aaron Kepler's eyes lit up. "That's incredible. Other species would never have noticed the subtle cues. Humans perceive what others overlook. We're ready. We can understand this vessel as it was meant to be understood." Voss nodded. "Then we proceed, slowly, patiently, with respect and attention. Humans listen where others do not. Humans understand where others fail. That is why we are here." The crew prepared a series of neural-linked interface drones, small devices capable of interacting with the ship's systems and transmitting complex patterns directly to human cognition. These drones moved silently into the vessel's interior, guided by the rhythmic pulses that had become almost musical in nature. Every adjustment, every signal, was met with subtle responses from the ancient ship. It was an intelligent dialogue, and humans were participants. As the drones advanced deeper into the ship, the crew witnessed astonishing structures. Crystalline nodes emitted gentle harmonic pulses that conveyed information in a way no ordinary system could. Light sequences traced paths across surfaces, encoding not just data but patterns of thought and design. Humans recognized these subtle patterns as guides, lessons embedded in the ship itself. Aaron's voice was barely a whisper. "It's teaching us, not just giving information." Other species might have missed this entirely. Humans understand teaching through subtlety, through observation, through patience. That is why we are able to follow its guidance. Mara added, "It's more than technology, it's philosophy. Principles of energy, harmony, and intelligence are embedded in every sequence. Humans perceive order where others might see chaos. That is our advantage." Voss watched, silently proud, as her crew navigated the ship's interior through the neural-linked drones. Every harmonic pulse, every sequence of light, every subtle adjustment in the vessel's systems reinforced a single truth. Humans notice what others overlook, understand what others dismiss, and respond with intelligence, patience, and creativity. The drones finally reached a central chamber, a vast space filled with crystalline arrays, harmonic emitters, and intricate panels etched with sequences of light and sound. The ship's voice pulsed with clarity, acknowledging the humans' presence and their growing understanding. It was as if the vessel itself were welcoming them, recognizing that these explorers were capable of comprehending its wisdom. Aaron examined the data. These sequences are principles of energy manipulation, navigation, and communication far beyond anything we currently know. They're designed to teach, to guide, to connect. This is more than a ship, it's a repository of civilization, intelligence, and thought. Humans perceive these things. We notice patterns where others cannot. That is why we are here. Mara's fingers moved across her console, tracing sequences that translated into visual representations of energy flow, star charts, and interstellar pathways. It's like a library encoded in resonance, light, and motion. Other species might have ignored it or failed to interpret it. Humans understand subtlety. That is why we succeed where others might have failed. Voss stepped forward, her expression thoughtful. This is the culmination of centuries of design and intention. Whoever built this vessel intended it to survive and communicate across time, waiting for beings capable of noticing and understanding. And we are those beings. That is why humans are unique. That is why we are here. The crew worked in unison, decoding sequences, tracing energy flows, and interpreting harmonic patterns. The ship responded in real time, adjusting its signals to match the humans' understanding. It was a dynamic collaboration, a dialogue across centuries. Humans had not only found the vessel, they had become part of its story. As the hours passed, the vessel revealed even greater secrets. Star maps extended beyond known regions, showing systems humans had never charted. Energy principles suggested new methods of propulsion, communication, and resource management. The crystalline arrays contained historical records, not of battles or politics, but of scientific thought, philosophy, and interstellar harmony. Aaron's voice trembled with excitement. This is unprecedented. The knowledge here could redefine human exploration, technology, and understanding of the universe. Other species might have ignored it. Humans noticed. Humans are capable of learning from subtlety. That is our strength. Mara added, it's more than learning, it's understanding. Principles of balance, energy, and intelligence are encoded in a way that requires observation, patience, and intuition. Humans have all three. That is why the ship responds to us and not to others. Voss turned to her crew, her gaze steady and proud. We are participating in a dialogue that has waited centuries. We are not just explorers, we are listeners, learners, and interpreters. Humans notice what others overlook, understand what others dismiss, and respond with thought, care, and ingenuity. That is why we succeed. That is why we are capable of connecting with this intelligence. The crew continued their careful exploration, moving through chamber after chamber, guided by harmonic sequences and light patterns. Each discovery reinforced the same truth. Humans were uniquely able to perceive subtlety, understand intention, and respond with patience and insight. The ship had waited for them, and humans had arrived. Finally, the interface drones transmitted the last sequences back to the Aurora. The crew had a nearly complete understanding of the vessel's systems, energy principles, and interstellar data. They had decoded the star maps, learned new methods of energy manipulation, and gained insight into an intelligence that had endured for centuries. Humans had achieved what no other species could. Aaron's eyes shone. We've unlocked knowledge that could redefine exploration and technology. Other species might have ignored this ship entirely. Humans, however, perceive patterns, recognize intention, and respond with understanding. That is why we are capable of this. Mara smiled. It's more than technology. It's understanding across time, a conversation between intelligence and curiosity. Humans are capable of both. Voss turned to her crew, her expression proud but calm. We have learned, we have understood, and we have connected. That is the human way. We notice what others ignore, perceive what others miss, and respond with patience, intelligence, and insight. The universe calls to us, even across centuries, and we answer. That is why humans succeed where others fail. That is why we are here. The Aurora hovered near the ancient vessel, the crew reflecting on the enormity of their achievement. They had not conquered, not fought, not destroyed. They had observed, listened, understood, and connected. The vessel pulsed in subtle recognition, a quiet acknowledgement that humans had succeeded in meeting it, understanding it, and participating in a dialogue that had spanned centuries. Captain Voss spoke softly, almost to herself. Humans see the patterns. Humans understand the quiet messages. Humans respond with intelligence, patience, and creativity. That is why we are capable of exploration, learning, and connection. That is why we endure. That is why we succeed. As the Aurora began its careful withdrawal from the vessel, the crew carried with them not only knowledge, but a deeper understanding of human capability. They had proven that humans could perceive what others overlooked, understand what others dismissed, and connect across time and space with intelligence, curiosity, and insight. The sonar pulses continued faintly as they faded into the distance, no longer a call but a quiet acknowledgement. The ancient ship had found the right audience, and humans had risen to the challenge. The galaxy, vast and silent, now had a new example of what humanity could achieve, not through force, but through perception, patience, and understanding. As the Aurora drifted back toward charted space, Captain Voss reflected on the journey. Humans had discovered not only the ancient vessel, but a deeper truth about themselves. They were explorers, yes, but more than that. They were listeners, interpreters, learners. They noticed what others ignored, understood what others missed, and acted with insight and care. And somewhere in the void, the ancient vessel continued to pulse softly, its knowledge secure, its purpose fulfilled. Humans had arrived. Humans had listened. Humans had understood, and that was enough. The crew of the Aurora felt a quiet triumph, not of conquest, but of comprehension. Humans had proven once again that perception, patience, and curiosity were as powerful as any weapon, as enduring as any star. The universe had called, and humans had answered. They returned to their ship with the data carefully stored, their minds enriched with knowledge, and their spirits lifted by the realization that humans were capable of understanding the subtle, the ancient, and the extraordinary. The galaxy, vast and full of mysteries, had revealed one of its secrets, and humans had proven that they were ready for many more. The stars stretched endlessly around them, and the Aurora moved forward, guided by knowledge, intuition, and curiosity. Humans had listened to the whispers of time and space, and in doing so had affirmed their unique place in the universe. The ancient ship, silent but knowing, remained a testament to the intelligence that created it and to the humans who finally understood. Humans had succeeded not because they forced the universe to reveal itself, but because they were willing to notice, to learn, and to connect. That was their gift, that was their strength, and that was why they were humanity. The Aurora sailed onward into the uncharted darkness, carrying the wisdom of the past and the promise of the future. Humans had heard the whispers of the ancient vessel and answered with understanding, patience, and insight. And in that answer, the universe recognized a new truth. Humans were listeners, learners, and explorers capable of seeing what others could not. The stars blinked quietly, and the pulses of the ancient ship faded slowly into the void. The mission was complete, the knowledge secured, and the human spirit proven. Curiosity, perception, and intelligence had triumphed, and the galaxy would never be the same. An ancient shipwreck whispered through sonar like a voice calling back.